I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is Orangeville Town Council meeting for Tuesday, December the 14th at 6 p.m. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Yes.
Councillor Peters, second by Councillor Post. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move on to our closed meeting. Can we have a motion, please, to move into closed? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. All in favor?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to jump on to another link now.
Mr. Mayor, just for the public's interest, can you indicate the reasons for going into closed session, if you don't mind?
So the reasons for the closed meeting, it's being held pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purposes of considering the following subject matter: a confidential verbal report from John Hart, Town Solicitor, regarding the Pullen Well, regarding potential litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose. Also, a confidential verbal report from John Hart, Town Solicitor, regarding the Amerlink application, a litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Okay, so we're going to now jump on to another link for the closed meeting. We'll see you in a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We're ready to start the open session of our Orangeville Town Council meeting for December 14th, 2021. We've already had a closed portion of our meeting tonight. We will start this session with the singing of our national anthem. Mr. Bonato.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
All right, thanks once again to David Nairn, the Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville. We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. As mentioned earlier, we had a closed session of council, and we're going to rise and report at this moment on that meeting. That a confidential verbal report from John Hart, Town Solicitor, regarding the Pullen Well, again regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose, be received. And that the confidential verbal report from John Hart, Town Solicitor, regarding the Amerleak application regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose, be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Madam Clerk, do we need a motion on this, or are we already?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor, just a
Right.
motion, mover, seconder, and then we can just call the vote.
Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Peters. Any further comments? All in favor? Thank you, councillors. All right, moving on to item 11. This is a continuation of our budget discussions for 2022. Following last night's capital budget approval, we now are moving on to the 2022 operating budget. And again, we welcome our Treasurer, Nandini Syed, who will begin with some introductory remarks. Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just give me a moment so that I can upload the presentation slides. Do you have a visual, Your Worship?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, we shift our focus tonight to operating budget. So the flow of tonight's presentation mirrors that of last night's. I will open tonight's agenda with an overview of the net levy requirement, and then we'll proceed on to departmental budget presentation. I will present administration, corporate allocation, and police, and followed by corporate services presented by Ms. McKinney, Mr. Osmond, and finally Mr. Gosselak. Then I will table a formal recommendation for budget 2022, and we will wrap up tonight's presentation with some closing remarks from Mr. Brennan. Your Worship, If I could give you a takeaway or a soundbite, so to speak, that captures the essence of Budget 2022, let it be this: that the town delivers a historical lean budget without compromising service levels that our community members have come to rely upon while accomplishing council's strategic priorities. You have seen demonstration of that last night, and you will see further demonstration tonight as well. So how lean is Budget 2022? So the net levy requirement for 2022, this is where I'm moving my cursor, is 37.7 million, which is essentially 0.83% levy increase from last year's. In other words, we're looking at a little over $310,000. So here's a chart that shows the correlation between percentage increase as it relates to dollar value. So every 1% is $374,000. 0.75% is 281, 0.50, 187, 0.25, 93,000. So this is sort of a cheat sheet, our table that for council's perusal, as well as people who are listening in and viewing this. This chart shows levy requirement distribution by our various division and service areas. And I've said this on November 29th when I was tabling this budget, that our budget is extremely lean and majority of our tax levy dollars go towards essential services like water, wastewater, public works, fire, facilities, and so on. So I will start with the departmental budget overview. Now, these 4 areas are not essentially department per se. They're slightly outside of our service areas, but nonetheless, I'm sort of lumping them as administration. So let's take a look at the operating budget highlight for these areas. As council can see quite visually, the orange bar represents the proposed budget for 2022. The blue, dark blue bar represents the approved budget from 2021. So just a visual quick look sort of solidifies the fact that it's extremely a lean budget. So for OPP's budget, there is a slight increase, and it is due to inflationary pressure, as well as some reduction in grant revenue, such as the court security and prisoner transportation. For the corporate allocation, there's slight decrease, and that is due to our reduction in contribution to ORDC. For administration, the year-over-year increase is essentially inflationary in nature. For committees, there is a slight decrease from last year, and this is in keeping with the reduction of legal services, or legal costs rather, for PSB, or Police Services Board, and this is in by direction from the board. And that brings me to council's budget, which again is fairly on par with last year's. So this is kind of an overview of all the areas that are not truly department per se, but again, one of the things council will hear over and over again is comparison to last year's budget. This year's budget is extremely lean, and most of the service material drivers are extremely lean to begin with. With that, I would invite Ms. McKinney to walk us through corporate services operating budget. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. McKinney.
Thank you. To me, I know we've talked about capital yesterday and we're talking about operating tonight, but the capital budget is really what projects you need to move forward. And it's the operating budget that really is about people, which are the heart and strength of the organization that get things done. And so to that point, I just want to start by thanking the corporate services team. The CAO and GMs talk about this being the team that supports the whole team. And while that's always been true, I think during the pandemic in the past 18 months, it's really taken it to a different level. And I know that Mr. Osmond's going to be talking about the reimagination of community services, but I think a number of people have played critical roles in supporting the corporation during this difficult time, and I wanted to acknowledge that, including the proposal tonight that you see for the 2022 budget. And certainly I want to just single out, give a special thank you to our finance team for putting all of this together and the progress that have been made. And Rebecca and Mandeep are on the line, and Ledbrow, treasurer, who you just spoke, Nandini. So I want to express appreciation for that. Now, in terms of, perhaps we can go to the next slide. terms of the operating budget for corporate services, there are staff-related requests and enhancements in the proposed budget for consideration. And I'm going to cover this, but we can do it in the next slide if we can go to the following slide. So the material drivers, once again, actually reflect the key priorities of council as it relates to financial sustainability, enhancing communications, focusing on efficiency, and now we're adding inclusive and accessible on the operating side. The drivers that have this impact are listed before you here, and they include the addition of a junior GIS technician. The GIS program has come a long way at the town and is often recognized for progress in these areas. We've had a student in that role for some time and has really demonstrated the impact that these roles can have. They will be increasingly more critical as we move ahead with projects like enterprise asset management and the water meter integration project. And just some highlights that have been supported by that role to date include the automation of the water pollution control plant daily inspection dashboard, which took a paper process and automated it for when the staff are doing rounds. The business resiliency public dashboard during COVID that provided business information to the community, the capital projects listing that came out, and there's a ton of things on Data Orangeville that I would encourage you to check out, but this really is a key role in our organization. And there's a junior help desk technician, and the enhancement here is a request for a student that will help support some of the more basic help desk tasks, like replacing monitors and things like that add additional capacity to the team and free up others for more complex work. And we do anticipate being able to access grant funding to offset part of this role, which is also mentioned in the budget document. You'll also see the continuation of training for staff in key focus areas that include project management, continuous improvement, diversity training, and the change management training. The last one hasn't started, but the first three have. And that's an area where we continue to receive positive feedback for the training that's been offered corporately and really provides our staff with some key tools that are really very 21st century, frankly, in the delivery of our skills. It cuts across the organization. And then overarchingly, as it relates to financial sustainability, I know the treasurer has done a great job of articulating the progresses that have been made to date, both in her original introduction and the tabling last night and tonight. We have under this category the references to things like the assessment-based management to reduce the impact on the tax levy, and we have progression towards performance-based budgeting. I think we've collectively noted the differences in the budget document and the ability to communicate in a more easy to understand way for the community, as well as the ongoing development of strategies and policies that continue to advance the needs of the corporation. I will once again turn the floor over to Mr. Osmond.
Thank you very much, Ms. McKinney. And before I move on, I'll, on behalf of our management team in community services and all of our staff, I too would like to extend a great thank you and gratitude to the financial team in particular, because I got to tell you, I've done a lot of budgets in my over my years, and I got to say, in this past budget experience, working with the finance team and Denise and her team in finance, they're a small team. Nimble team, but very knowledgeable, and I got to say it was a good piece of work, and it was a great process going through this particular budget. And I say that because the budget for community services took on a little different feel as we went through our process with managers. And I mentioned this last night, and I think Ms. McKinney mentioned as well, is this reimagining piece. And if nothing else, coming through COVID, that experience gave us a chance to reflect on how we were operating, look at all of our models, take a look at everything across pretty much every division. And we had an opportunity to basically reset in a lot of cases, and we did. And some people are asking questions of me in terms of, well, we didn't ask for a lot of, we're not asking for a lot of funds in this budget. It is very lean. And we took a little bit of a different approach, and we wanted to see, by going through all of our divisions, where are there synergies? Where can we work together from one division to another? How can we support each other? And can we find synergies, and can we find economies and efficiencies by trying to take a look at one area and then trying to balance the whole overall scheme of things in terms of the community services? I think that's what we've done. So in saying that, I'll move on to the next slide. And when you look at our budget overall, I won't look at the totals, but when you look at it, there's not a lot of changes here. I mean, we're pretty much a hold line kind of a budget. I mean, we've got some big operations. I mean, in areas like parks, as an example, we get questioned on, well, what's happening in parks? How's our staff contingent? How's our capacity look? One of the things we have not able to do in the last couple of years is operate at full capacity. COVID has created a bit of a problem for us in terms of being able to take our full crew, if you would, in parks as an example, and put them out in our community. And we've cut back a little bit because we couldn't juggle all of our staff. We couldn't put all the staff and all the equipment. They had to stay so many feet apart. They had to operate in different facilities because they couldn't sit down and essentially even eat together. So there's a lot of work involved in trying to juggle our activity. But I am happy to say in this budget, we will be at full contingent. The other thing I want to speak on is, before I move out of this budget line, is this process we went through this year where we've actually taken all the grass maintenance from infrastructure services and passed it over to community services, and Parks is taking that on. And while we have pulled 3 students and we've also had a couple seasonals that are attached to this particular area, we see that 2022 is going to be a year for us to take a look at how all that functions. And we want to see how that inventory is being looked after, if we're indeed being able to deliver the service to the level we want to deliver it on. And then we'll have a better idea, having gone through 22, how we will tackle 23 and what our capacity levels look like. So really, essentially, we're looking at 22 as a continuation of resetting our operation, and also a way for us to recalibrate. And I use the word recalibrate in the sense that, you know, from time to time, it's not a bad idea to take a look at how you're operating your system, and maybe you can really recalibrate it a little bit. Putting on my Newfoundland hat, I mean, if you're using the compass a lot, you'll notice that from time to time you got to recalibrate that compass. Well, you know, I'll say to council, that's where we're to, and I think that really focuses on where council's strategic plan is and where council's drivers are and priorities are. And I think that's what really drives this whole entire budget. So I'll move on to the next slide. Thank you. So when you look at all of our divisions and you look at the priority areas that we've set across the line on the top of this particular slide, I think it's really the drivers that we're using right now to work on community services and continue to build community services and really deliver quality service to our community. So facilities and parks is a big operation in looking at optimizing our staff resources and efficiencies, and having to do more of that because we're actually taking on all facility operations in terms of maintenance in all facilities of the town. I think there's all total around 52 facilities that we've taken under our wing, and we are using 22 to really get a good grapple and a good grasp on what's going on in all those particular spaces and how we should be better maintaining them. And in doing that, we need to collaborate and find lots of synergies as well, not just within our own department, but also with our colleagues in infrastructure services as well as in corporate services. And Ms. McKinney went through a whole lot of things, and she kind of minimizes it to a certain degree. You know, using corporate services, they're a supporting mechanism to all of what we do. We can't operate without corporate services. We can't operate without HR doing their thing, IT doing their thing, finance, and so on and down the line. So in terms of community services, we rely on all of our partners to get our job done. And this is where this whole communication between departments come in. Again, we're looking at from a facilities and parks perspective, we see beautification being a big thing for us in Orangeville. We really want to beautify our community. It's part of our attraction. It's part of what makes us look good to tourists coming into the community and visitors as well, and our own residents. So we spend a lot of time looking at that. And one of the things I want to speak about, and I don't want to be too long, but it's really important for us, that over the last 2 years in particular, and you've all probably enjoyed the same experience, what has happened is we find that a lot of people now want to go in the great outdoors. People want to go out to parks. They want to enjoy the outdoors without anything that's kind of restricting them in terms of, well, being around people. There's lots of ways you can distance, you're breathing fresh air, and you're getting a good, healthy experience. That's important for us to maintain our parks to be able to deliver on that side. Moving on to recreation events, of course, you know, again, we're trying to generate revenue. We're trying to look at cost recovery. We're working on a different way of cost recovery going forward. We're putting something before council in a new year on how we look at cost recovery strategies across all divisions, but in particular recreation events. We promote our programs through all mediums. And one of the things we're focused on this year is we're really focusing on going back to grassroots, if you would. we want to go back to neighborhoods. We found through our master plan process that residents were saying, we like to see things closer to home. Well, we want to try something a little different. We want to try a mobile neighborhood program to get out into the neighborhoods and run programs in our parks, in our facilities that are close by in certain neighborhoods. And we really want to grow programming at the neighborhood level, and not just on the programming side, but also by using events to do that. And again, it really comes down to collaborating with our department partners, our division partners, libraries working with recreation, economic development working with recreation, coming together and working as a team. And we're seeing lots of that now in terms of how we looked at this particular budget. Moving on to economic development and culture. Well, you know, I got to give full kudos to Ruth in particular. I'm going to kind of put her out there this evening because she spent a lot of time in the last number of months, particularly with the business community, working on getting grants. And her latest grant, of course, with the Accelerator program, where she gets to support businesses that are trying to grow a new business and trying to support the existing business. You know, she was lucky, and I shouldn't say lucky, she worked hard at it. And she got a grant to $57,000 and change to support that. And there's a small amount of money from the community built into this budget from the town of $12,000, and she's getting $57,500 from government, as well as another $5,000 from the BIA, another one of our great partners. And again, it moves into this collaboration piece, but that funding will be a great support to some of the work she's doing, and she'll continue to support, get grants and support her programming. So that's a great thing for the economic development side. Moving along, the tourism strategy is big for us. We want to get that strategy moving. We're looking at implementation plans. It's moving all through this year. Next year is even bigger. A lot of time and effort going into that. Our library service programs, we continue to grow our core programs. We've seen it when we did the branding business strategy in 2021, our planning piece for the library. Over 1,500 residents had input to the survey process. Huge input from our community. And there's some really exciting stuff coming out of the library side, and we're going to continue to build that. And again, it speaks to the collaboration, and also speaks to be able to take our planning piece and really use it in 22 to move the libraries along. So you'll see some good, exciting things coming out of that. Orangeville Fire, again, they work on cost recovery with our partners, our partnering communities that we work with and support. We are going to get back more at the promoting fire safety and education, which is kind of taking a little bit of a back seat in the last couple of years because of COVID and into the schools and so on. And again, we want to continue to optimize our optimal response. And again, with the new fire station, it's really built around the optimal response and how we can better serve the community. And finally, crossing guards that we picked up last year. Crossing guards, we're looking at optimizing the efficiencies of our crossing guard. We're actually doing, Darrell in particular is doing a huge review right now, almost completed a review on crossing guards. It takes a look at all the intersections that we have crossing guards located, and takes a look at all those functions and all the data that goes along with that she's working on. That'll give us a better feel for how we look at the community safety piece for healthy living with the crossing guard world. So all this as a package, we're being able to deliver for a very lean budget, and I'm quite pleased that, and on behalf of our managers, I want to thank council for their support in this regard, because we've kind of done a piece of work here that I think that will be a really big leadership piece in 2022. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Osmond. Mr. Koselleck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have to echo what Mr. Osmond said. You know, I came here, I think my first week, I had the pleasure of working with the finance team on the budget, and it was a budget that I hadn't seen. And I was really, really impressed the way they sort of held my hand and led me through the process, helped me understand what I didn't understand, which was a lot. Nandini, you're fantastic. Your team is wonderful. And personally, I really appreciate all the support you gave me. The infrastructure services operating budget delivers services through 5 teams, as you can see. Mr. Ward leads the planning division. Can you just go back one slide? Thanks. Mr. Ward leads the planning division. Mr. Gagan Sandhu leads the public works area. Mr. John Lackey leads transportation and development. The environment manager position has been vacant for some time, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. And Mr. Ewald leads our building department. Next slide. So as you can see, Mr. Jones did a very good job working with staff and putting together an extraordinarily lean budget. The year-to-year increases on all our areas are quite low. The overall increase for the infrastructure services division is also quite low. The two material drivers that we have is outside services with Public Works, and is actually an efficiency that we found through the way we do our standby, and an operating agreement for vehicle maintenance with transit that's increased the transit budget a small amount. Next slide. From a rate funded area, you can see the increases again for wastewater, water, and our building department are quite low. The water and wastewater services are funded through rates and don't affect the overall tax levy. And the building department is essentially self-sustaining, recovering its funding through fees. There's two material drivers associated with this. In the water division, we did have a band change for a number of our licensed well operators. And what happens, they're to be licensed to the level of the facility. As they get their increased licenses, their pay is adjusted accordingly. On the wastewater side, every few years, we're required to do a marsh monitoring survey that gives us some intel on the health of the marsh downstream of the water pollution control plant, and a sense of how the facility is operating and how it could or isn't affecting the Credit River. Next slide, please. So just talk a little bit about each of the groups. You know, at the Treasurer's suggestion, we did look at the work that we're doing and really try to align it with the strategic priorities that Council has established. And the work aligns, as you can see, quite nicely. The Public Works division is our biggest front-facing team, and it provides a host of services, from plowing and sanding and salting our sidewalks and roads to make sure they're safe and functional, maintaining our stormwater management systems, producing and distributing safe, clean, reliable drinking water, and collecting and treating wastewater so the treated effluent is discharged into the Credit River and meets or exceeds the provincial guidelines. On Monday, the CAO and I had a chance to speak to the entire Public Works team out of the Operations Center. And these are the folks that can't work from home. They're at the Operations Center, they're in the plows, they're out sampling our water every day. It's a fantastic group, and I just wanted to acknowledge them and give them credit for their contributions towards the way the town is operated. They're really are the frontline service, and they do an amazing job. The Environmental Services Division had some challenges over the past year, primarily related to staff turnover and hiring. And the CAO and I are using this opportunity to review the role and function of the team and look at opportunities to realign some of the responsibilities within other divisions in infrastructure services. A key responsibility of this division is ensuring that the water quality management system is adhered to, and the water quality monitoring reports demonstrate compliance with provincial and other regulatory requirements. So January of next year, Council will have the pleasure of reading our drinking water quality update report. And it will discuss the successes that the town has seen, but also some of the areas for improvement that have been identified. So that will be coming in January. The Transportation and Development team, as I mentioned, led by Mr. Lackey, consists of 4 staff and 1 student. Again, it's a very lean team, and its focus is on maintaining both our current assets, but also bringing on future assets through development. So these activities really include reviewing and commenting on development applications to ensure new infrastructure meets the town standards, delivering the roads portion of the capital plan, which includes, the major reconstruction and rehabilitation of, parts of our 125 kilometers of road. We have 15 major bridges and major culverts, sidewalks, 2,500 streetlights, and all kinds of other key infrastructure. And when you start to look at the magnitude of what's out there, it's impressive that a team of 4 is able to deliver that. They also are responsible for the operation and maintenance of the cemetery. There's no significant level of service changes for this group. The planning division, led by Mr. Ward, is a very busy, dynamic team consisting of 3.5 staff. The cost to run the division is partially offset by fees. The planning division provides professional planning advice to property owners, committees, such as Heritage Orangeville, consultants, developers, and council on matters primarily related to new development or redevelopment. And to give you a sense of what they've been working on, in 2021, they had 65 applications either approved or under active review, which include 5 plans of subdivision and 12 site plans. We're not sure what development activity will be like in the coming year. When we put the budget together, we expected a slight uptick, but with the new COVID variants, it'll be interesting to see what sort of development activity comes through our doors. Similarly, the building division, led by Bruce Ewald, is also a very small team, 3.5 people. The program itself is basically totally funded through revenues for building permit applications. And again, the building department reviews, comments, and approves building permits, and they provide service to the public, developers, and contractors. They also assist our property standards folks with some of the structural issues that they face. And they've been busy. In the last year, they've had 210 permits and 659 inspections were completed. We, again, like planning, we anticipate a slight uptick in activity in 2022. But we'll anxiously wait and see. In summary, Your Worship and Council, I'd say my take, we have 3 or 4 key areas that I really want to see our group focus on for 2022. None of them are big budget drivers, but I think they can all work towards improving the service that we provide to the public, to council. We talked last night a little bit about increasing communication related to capital projects and really increasing a focus on capital delivery. But that goes to more than just capital, and we're looking to try and increase our level of communication with the general public, just to provide people with a little more intelligence in terms of us to get messages out. The key focus, as I see it, and there's absolutely nothing more important than our staff and our team. Over the last, I think it's been about 6 weeks, I've really tried to take some time and talk to the individuals in all the departments. And, whilst it doesn't cost a lot, I think by sort of optimizing our organizational structure and really focus on getting the recruiting done, taking more time to deal with things like succession planning and training, that mentoring and coaching piece, we should be able to go a long way in terms of supporting sort of staff development and long-term retention. So those would be my 3 areas of focus for the coming year. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council.
Thank you, Mr. Koselleck. Madam Treasurer, you wish to make final comments?
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Worship. So before I invite Mr. Brennan to provide his closing remarks, what I would like to do is officially table recommendation before Council for Budget 2022. So my recommendation is that Council approves 0.83% or $310,952 levy increase for the tax-funded portion of the consolidated budget, and that Council further approves the 2022 self-funded building, water, and wastewater budget as presented. With that, over to you, Mr. Brennan.
Mr. Brennan.
Your Worship, thank you. I'm just going to have a couple comments before we get into some debate and whatnot. So I'm pleased that we're able to present this budget. I think it's a responsible budget and it reflects the town's strategic plan and council's priorities. And I want to thank council for your support and for you providing the clarity of your priorities throughout this past year and years of your term. I would also like to thank our general managers, our treasurer, and our finance team, the management team, and all of staff who have participated in preparing this budget. It is a lot of work, and I think it was a great job that has been done. The 2022 budget, as you heard just recently from some staff, is a lean budget. There is no doubt, and we have a lean organization. I want everyone to understand this is something that we will be looking at in 2022, and staffing levels will have to increase in future years as the town grows and as our level of services increase. That is an understanding going forward. However, during these times, I think this is a very responsible budget to bring forward in respect of our council and our residents that are living through this pandemic for going on 2 years. To talk about the past 2 years, it has been very challenging on many fronts. And with the announcement of the new variant, it appears that it's going to be challenging and uncertain for some time to come. As we continue to adapt to such challenges of the pandemic, we must understand, and I say this respectfully, but we must understand the impact of supply chain issues, the impact of inflation, the global challenge of attaining and retaining staff or finding contractors, the increase of prices throughout our society, the added pressure on staff as people, and the added pressures on our residents and general population. All of these factors will impact staff's abilities to provide the service that we're used to and to complete many of our projects on time, potentially. With that said, I assure council that our residents, that staff will not only continue to put forth their best efforts in providing great service to our community, we will look and we will strive to become better, and we will strive to improve and to improve and continue with improvements and to recognize any efficiency we may find where possible. With that said, Your Worship, again, I would like to say thank you to all and all the staff and pass it back to you.
All right, Mr. Brennan and staff, I wanted to thank you for this document. I know your senior management team and all of your departmental managers worked very diligently on this. Thanks to our Treasury staff for pulling this all together. You know, as we look at it, we've been improving service levels. We've improved I think the staff work environment. And also staff continues to make suggestions to steadily improve the town of Orangeville, and it's much appreciated by all the residents and certainly by council members. You know, I just want to touch on a couple of items. The council has continued to improve traffic safety. That's been on the forefront. A number of councillors have brought forward issues to improve traffic safety. The security of homes and residents and businesses have been addressed through improved levels of police and fire. Our recreation improvements, the Alder Street Rec Complex is going through improvements now. Baseball diamonds are going to be improved this year. We've got a new park going up in the Rolling Hills neighborhood, and the addition of significant improvement in trail infrastructure is really going to be great for the residents of Orangeville. The continued investment in infrastructure, which is, you know, on an ongoing basis, we try and keep up with refurbishment of all of our infrastructure, including roads and sewers and water, and that's been going on to a significant level. And I think the improvement in digital infrastructure both hardware and software, and just the internal workings of the town has been great over the past 3 years, and is continuing in this budget. The ability for us to communicate better internally and also to our residents is also noted. So, you know, on the whole, I don't have a hell of a lot to say other than well done, and I'm happy to approve this budget as it is, but I would like to hear from our councillors and any improvements or suggestions. Councillor Andrews, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. You have said much of what myself and probably the entire team of council would like to reflect and echo. You know, the presentation by Madam Treasurer and the team, as was even commented last night, incredibly professional. And you know, you raise the bar every time that you've presented a budget to council. You know, the key messaging here, it is lean. The heart and strength of the organization is the human capital that we have as part of every team, every department that exists within the organization. And all I can say from my seat is thank you. You know, there are multiple points that were shared by the general managers. You know, I think that Mr. Osmond summed up something that was very important, is the connection to our neighborhoods. As much as we have dealt with the pandemic the last 18 plus months, I find that, you know, people are still striving and hungering to connect with the members of our community. And what a better way to see that come to fruition with the opportunity of some of our neighborhoods also benefiting with some of the activities that will be forthcoming in the 2022 budget. The beautification is very important, the opportunities for being outside. You know, I take a look at, you know, so many of the key drivers here, and I think that we should all be very proud. We also have some points that Mr. Brendan shared, which is that of our human capital, the staff, and, you know, we don't want to put to the staff more than they can end up handling, but there will be forthcoming opportunities for additional staff. The one point I wanted to ask Madam Treasurer, in these times, of course, we're dealing with the pressures of insurance increases. And you were very kind to provide me with some explanation to that particular item in the budget. And for the sake of not only the members of council, but maybe our general public, if you could just maybe provide or share a little bit about your observation on that, and that would be greatly appreciated at this time.
Madam Treasurer.
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Andrews. So overall, the market for insurance is, for lack of a better terminology, all over the map. We are seeing drastic increases. A lot of our neighboring municipalities are talking about self-insuring themselves. In contrast to that, we were very lucky to obtain a very respectable quote from our insurance company. And overall, we saw anywhere between 6 to 7% increase. So some of our neighboring, and when I say neighboring, I just don't only mean municipalities within Dufferin County, but, you know, a larger area. Some of them are experiencing double-digit increase as it comes to their insurance expenses. So like I said, we have been able to negotiate a very good rate with our current provider, and that's what we have incorporated in our current budget. I hope I answered your question, Councillor.
You did. Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. We have Councillor Taylor up next. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. A few questions, if I may, through you to Mr. Osmond. Mr. Osmond, with all due respect, referring to the maintenance of the town for next year, and you'd mentioned the changes that you're making in terms of departments. You know, a spade, it just wasn't very good last year. I know we had some issues with the pandemic, and certainly not trying to cast aspersions, but there was significant issues with lawn maintenance and whatnot. And I guess my question is, based on the budget that you put forth here, do you have enough funding? Do you have enough people? Are we going to be in good shape, you know, spring, summer, fall next year in relation to maintenance?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Taylor. I'll first off say, I think that when I look back on the year and the maintenance in the overall community, and I may have alluded to this in my remarks. First off, we weren't operating at capacity. We did not have our full crew out because our full crew could not function in the environment based on COVID restrictions and so on and so forth. So we didn't operate at full capacity. I will be the first to say that, yeah, we may have had some challenges in the park side, and we definitely had challenges in our infrastructure services side. When we reflected on this past year, we made a decision, I think a great decision, to incorporate all of our grass under one big crew. And cutting grass is almost a science to a certain degree. How you go after grass and how you tackle grass is quite important. And it's not just about labor. It's not just about human resources. It's also about equipment and how you deploy your equipment and having the proper equipment to deploy and to start with. And I think we have the equipment capacity. I think we have the staff capacity. And I think we have the supervisory crew capacity, now that I look back on what we've planned for the year, to tackle all this community and raise the bar, if you would. I think Councillor Andrews may have mentioned raising the bar in a lot of areas. Well, this is one area that we don't disagree. We can always raise the bar, and we are going to be moving forward to do just that. And we're taking on all this grass. We want to go through the complete inventory, making sure that things are done on schedule. As per lots of our parks. I mean, one thing to look after a play field is another thing to look after, a green space here and there and everywhere throughout the community, around some of our storm ponds, even some of our trail systems and so on and so forth. So I think we've got a really good plan in place, and I'm confident that we'll deliver in 2022.
Very good. Would you, Your Worship, am I okay to continue on here? Thank you, sir. Would you, Mr. Osmond, would you be able to elaborate a bit more on two projects that I think are super exciting? And one is just the redesign of Rebecca Hills Park. When do you expect shovels in the ground on that project? When will we see some material changes? And I guess that's the same thing for, and I'm leading the witness a little bit. I just want to have a quick discussion about Alexandra Park as well. And if you could give a little bit of your thoughts on those two projects, I'd be grateful.
Rebecca Hills, to start with, Rebecca Hills Park, we've already looked at a first concept that we're working on with a consultant, the one that we want to try to get a couple of concepts ready and then meet with the public in the area, meet with residents in the area and have them have a chance to have input. And once they have their final input, we'll be doing that over the winter months, and then we'll go to tender for some of the pieces, some of the features that got to go into that park. The park right now, we're looking at things such as expanding the playground, doing upgrading the soccer area, upgrading to a spray pad feature. So it's got a lot of potential for changes, and we increased the budget, as you know, and we're going to tackle that one early and get it done in the summer, and hopefully over the summer months. It won't take a lot of time, and again, based on supply chains, we're hoping everything's going to come quickly, but our plan is to tackle that this summer and have that up and running. Alexandra Park, I made my comments in the capital budget side in particular. We have funding in the budget to tackle consulting. Quite frankly, I think we've done a great job in the master plan to reflect what we could do in concept, and I think the concept works really well. So our intent is to salvage where we can, and again, be more efficient with our dollars, and take the concept plan we have and do design and construction pieces around that. And we need to firm up what exactly we're going to do with the cemetery. That's quite important. We've had discussions with the cemetery. We have some options open to us. I've had some good discussions with the Legion in terms of how we would actually, move the cenotaph around on site. What would actually work, and that will continue in the winter months. And we would like to get that thing up and running and have some of that work done in the summer of 2022. If that answers your question, anything else I can clarify?
No, it's very good. Thank you. May I ask one last one and I'll be done, Your Worship?
Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, I think it's to Mr. Koslak, the 50 grand for council chambers. Excuse me for not remembering. Is it just simply for audio visual and we're fixing TV screens? And oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Osmond, is that yourself? Yeah, my apologies.
Sorry. Through Your Worship to Councillor Taylor. Actually, it's a collaboration, if you would. From a facility perspective, we handle all the components of the facility, but we do it with our team from IT. And you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of cabling. There are monitors, changes in monitors for council when you go back into the chamber will be a little different. Using iPads will be a little different. Some of the features that we're using right now in the virtual world, we're going to enhance the virtual world, so you'll have a better communication out to into the virtual world from this new chamber. And that funding is wrapped around all these IT, technology pieces that makes that chamber a lot better for operation to the public and to the virtual world, if you would. It won't be a lot of tear up, but the issue we have right now is supply chains, and all the materials going into the chamber right now, it's on the docket to be delivered on January 20th. And then we'll do the work in the chamber, and it won't take long to do that work. The actual contract's been let for the crew to do that. It's just they're waiting on supplies.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Next up, we have Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Sherwood, please.
Yes, Your Worship. Again, I want to thank the Treasury team led by our Treasurer Nandini and our CAO and all the general managers. You have a budget there that I'm quite pleased with and happy to accept. I've got one minor little thing. It's not a cut. I'm glad to see it in the budget actually, and I want to just have clarification. Communication is one of our strategic plans, of course. One of our things is so to see that we're going to be putting more communication in another paper. For those people that aren't always using computers, and some choose to read one newspaper over another. So I'm actually glad to see it. I know it's only $10,000, but like I say, there's some people that just don't have the social media skills. So what I was wondering is, I'm trying to find it, and I'm sorry, I've been scrolling, trying as Mr. Osmond was speaking. As far as putting it in, are we alternating every week? Or are we putting it in both papers, the same thing every single week? Oh, Ms. McKinney.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the concept is we would continue with the consistency in one paper, and we would add in strategic locations in the second to just increase our advertising for 2022.
So it's not actually a duplication of like both.
It's not a complete duplication. That would effectively be doubling our budget, and we thought that was too much.
Okay. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillors, if we have no further questions, we will end this portion of the meeting tonight and head on to staff reports. The first staff report, 12.1, was the Regulatory Bylaw Review Work Plan, CPS 2021-085, and that is that funds in the amount of $87,000 be allocated in the 2022 operating budget to obtain staffing assistance to assist with research, drafting, and review of bylaws noted in report CPS 2021-085. And of course, for residents listening in, it was the wish of council that we do accelerate some of the work on bylaws, and this is the request of our town clerk to add some human resources to make that happen. Councillors, can we have a motion on that? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Peters. Any further discussion? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, through you. How are we anticipating on funding this?
Madam Treasurer.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood, we can fund this through our rate stabilization reserves.
Because it's a one-time ask, right?
And that way, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And that way, it's cleaner. It does not impact the rate that is proposed through our 2022 budget, and that's what the reserve is for.
That's what I was wondering, is because if we were to put this in the operating budget, that would likely bring it up about another almost a 0.25%, would it not, in around there? Based on your presentation from before.
That's correct.
So this way we're keeping within. I don't have an issue with it, and I know that the bylaws are quite a priority. My concern is the pressures on staff, and even just having one person in an election year. There is going to be a lot of pressures on our clerk's department, and I'm sure the clerk wouldn't put this before us if she didn't think they're capable of doing that. But I really worry about putting this hardship on our clerk's department, who's going to be very strained next year with election. So I'm happy to support it. But if you look at what the clerk had said, they don't like to get more than 3 bylaws a year, and yet this group is recommending even more than 3 during election year when those strains are already going to be high pressure in the clerk's department.
Right. Ms. McKinney, did you want to respond to that comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think we certainly acknowledge the sentiment of what Councillor Sherwood is saying. Karen, or the clerk, Ms. Landry, looked carefully at the work plan and is aware that this council wants to move ahead with progress on a long list of bylaws, so has put this forward for council's consideration in a way that she thinks is reasonable. And she's certainly here tonight if she wanted to add anything. Otherwise, I suppose silence is consent.
Right. Ms. Landry, would you like to weigh in here? I know this is, you've crafted this ask, and we'll let you comment on Councillor Sherwood's comments.
Okay, yeah. First of all, thank you, Councillor Sherwood, for your consideration in that regard. And I won't disagree with your sentiments at all. Certainly, it is an ambitious work plan. I think I do indicate right in the report itself that we do recommend that we only do 3 in 1 year. I guess one of the things that I will say is that it's good to set the bar high and try to achieve what we've laid out. I can't promise you that we're going to achieve all those extra bylaws that I've indicated. However, we will make our best efforts to do so. I can advise council that the work plan currently, we indicate there's the property standards bylaw, the vehicle for hire, tow truck, election signs, and delegation of authority. Those 5 bylaws at this given point in time are scheduled to come before you within the next couple of months. So we've made great progress in that regard for those bylaws. From a corporate perspective, I do see that both our parks bylaw, I know Mr. Osmond would agree with that, is of a priority. Also our traffic bylaw, and I'm sure Gary and Mr. Koselak and John Lackey would agree that the traffic bylaw is in need of updating. So those 2 bylaws will be next on our list and are of high priority. And I do think with these resources, we can accomplish bringing them before council during this term of council. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Landry. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve this ask. All in favor? Very good. Moving on to 12.2, the consolidated budget approval, and that is that council approves the 0.83% or $310,952 levy increase for 2022 tax funded consolidated budget, and the council approved the water and wastewater self-funded budget as presented. May we have a motion on that, please? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further comments, councillors, before we vote on this? All right, all in favor? Very good. Madam Treasurer, thank you so much again for you and your team, and of course everybody that works for the town of Orangeville who's worked on this project. And it's another impressive presentation graphically. I'm sure you'll be sending this in for another award, I would imagine, and thank you very much. All right, moving on in our agenda, councillors, is there any new business anybody would like to speak to tonight? Seeing none. Any questions from the public? Mr. Bonato or Madam Clerk?
Through you, Your Worship, there is currently nobody on the line.
Very good. So we'll move on to number 19.1, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its council and operating budget meeting of December 14th, 2021. We have a motion for this bylaw, please. Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. All in favor? All right, folks. Thank you very much. All the best.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Good night.